Hey guys, we are coming at you live. Excited to be here, Mr. Jerry Norton. How the heck are you doing, bro?
Good. We took a week off there with some travel and stuff going on. So good to be back, Cody.
Travel, and I think specifically the Norton compound had an awesome little party, and you were manning the grill, my friend.
Yeah, I had to man the grill. That's right.
This is, and I bet you that was a good party. I just about flew out, just so you know. Just about. These guys know how to throw a party. Well, guys, I'm excited to be here. This is going to be fun. As you can tell, the topic tonight, and really what we want to kind of housekeeping items on the beginning side of this is the topic tonight is all around virtual wholesaling. So the best way that you can make this of most value is as you chime in, because this is very much a live Q&A. We're going to do the best we can. I know sometimes we always have posts saying, man, I want more Q&A. We're going to try and do the best we can. Know that first and foremost. We do want to tap into our guest tonight and be able to really share with you guys experiences that we've had. But Michael McDonald's going to share some experiences with virtual wholesaling. So the best thing you guys can do is, as you think about questions, please, please, please keep this around virtual wholesaling. So those are the questions that are going to get our attention. Those are the questions that we're going to bring up and answer live. So that's the biggest thing. If I can tell you anything, is keep it around virtual if you want your questions answered, because that's what this one is all about. So Jerry, is there anything I'm missing on housekeeping items, or did I cover it clear enough on what we're trying to get here with intention?
Yeah, definitely participate in the chat, guys. That's what this is for. We definitely want to dive into this topic and try to get some depth to it. We've got a special guest on here that's going to be breaking down a deal like we like to do. But like Cody said, we are going to try to focus on some Q&A. And Cody, this is a really hot topic. I mean, since kind of COVID, this has become now a really big thing for a lot of people. It's turned from this kind of like obscure idea to pretty mainstream. And I think it's going to continue down that path just because everyone's really comfortable now with conferencing, Zooming, on the phone, not this face-to-face connection anymore. And so with that, I think it's going to become more and more of a thing to virtually do the business. And so it's kind of interesting. I've been doing it virtually for about 7 years now, long before it was even called something. And so there's some nuances to it. There's some challenges to it. There's also some huge opportunities to it. So we're hopefully going to try to get into that and give you guys some real good takeaways on today's live stream.
Perfect. Well, before we get going, let's do our introduction, but I've already got a cool little segue question on this side that I'm going to bring up here in just a second. But tonight, guys, we have Michael McDonald. This guy is one incredible individual, has been in the business for a couple years now, doing big things. They've done well over 100 deals. Right now, he resides in Las Vegas. Headquarters started out in Nebraska. And when he moved to Vegas, he carried to where he's, doing deals locally, but ultimately he's doing deals all over the place. Nebraska, like the Midwest, and then he's got Florida deals, and he's got Colorado deals. And tonight we're going to break down one of those deals so you can kind of get a taste of what that looks like. But again, guys, I'm excited to have Michael McDonald with us. So Michael, to get us going, why don't you give us maybe just a 1-minute version of what got you into real estate and specifically wholesaling virtually?
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for the intro. Thanks for having me, guys. This is an honor for sure. So I got my start in real estate by attending the free real estate event. Showed up. They sold me on the $2,000 package, went to the 3-day event, got sold on the $20,000, got the one-on-one mentorship. And so basically all in from the very beginning, $50,000 in debt, and we were off to the races. Got in that way. And then
2 years ago, right? 2 years ago, Michael?
Yeah, it was about 3 years ago now.
Okay.
The first year, it was kind of a rocky roller coaster. Did a handful of wholesales. It wasn't until I quit my full-time job after realizing that, you can make some pretty real money in this business, that things kind of took off from there. So 2 years ago, I quit my job and shortly before doing that, I formed a partnership with my now business partner. And right as we were starting to gain traction in our business, my wife talked me into moving to Las Vegas. So we were in Nebraska, moved to Las Vegas, and naturally you figure out how to do deals virtually because our home base was Nebraska, and we now live out here and we do deals virtually.
Why Vegas? Why Vegas? Of all places, why Vegas?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, first of all, the weather in Nebraska, I don't know if you guys have heard, in the wintertime is just not very pleasant. So that was number one, the weather. We're like, okay, we've had enough. And then number two is her family. Her sister has some kiddos out here, and we were starting to raise a family. So I have a couple kids myself, and wanted to raise the kids with their cousins. So we settled down over here in Inspirata here in South Henderson.
That's fantastic. Cool. Something cool, Jerry, you might know some pin on this, so we can we'll keep going back. So Mike, I'm excited for this, and we're going to kind of just keep going in and out and trying to capture some questions along the way. One out of the gate before I miss it, because it's so cool. This is one of our guests that says it's the highlight of her week to be on this, Jerry. But she had a fantastic question, and she says, how can I wholesale from England? What does this process look like? Is this something, when we talk about virtual wholesale, Jerry, have you seen people out of the country do wholesale deals within the country that it ends up being, it works out and they're able to do that successfully?
Yeah, I actually have some Finder students in some of my programs that actually do that we've had some from Canada and England, Australia, South Africa. So there's some tricky things there between countries, and you have to sit down with somebody in your country and find out what the ramifications are for doing a deal in the US and how you're going to get compensated back into your country. So that's not really something I know the answer to, because it's going to be different for everybody. But you certainly can virtually do this from England in the US. Now, the idea would be you live in England, you find, source, and do a deal in the US. Title's going to ask you, how do I send you your check, right? So that's what you're going to have to try to figure out is what that looks like. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. But there's going to be different implications for tax and all of those things that I think you just need to kind of sit down and figure that out on your end. But yeah, you certainly can. I mean, whether you're sitting in Arizona doing a deal in Michigan, or you're sitting in Australia and do a deal in Michigan, virtual is virtual. So that's the kind of good thing about it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Maybe a question, and definitely chime in, Michael, on this before we get going. What are some of the things, I think this is a great beginning part of to actually start where we're going to go with this. And with the virtual, I think there's a uniqueness to this because you've got 50 states to pick from. I mean, you've got a ton of territory to pick from. How do you begin to decide on what your markets are going to be and how many markets are too many? Like, how do you know where to start if you're going to go virtually? I know you it may already be a little bit virtual because it's like, yes, headquarters started in Nebraska, you moved to Vegas, but you're still doing deals in Nebraska. But then at some point you branched off and went to other states. What made you select those states or those cities?
Yeah, so we look for some of the like mid-sized markets. We were kind of trying to stay away from like the big markets like maybe Phoenix or Las Vegas for a lot of reasons. But number one is you're competing against hedge funds and there's just more people doing it. So we thought maybe in these other markets, less people doing it, and we could have more of a market share if we decided to do that and just went all in. So those are the couple things that we kept in mind. However, we decided to test it out in Denver, and it's been a challenge because there's just a ton of competition, and so that's what I would say is just kind of find a market where you might have somebody reputable who you can trust to go boots on the ground if need be, but also just kind of look at more of a mid-sized market versus one of these larger markets.
That's all, Jerry. I know you have roots in one of your grounds where you farm and do this virtually. Is that the main reason why you picked Detroit, is because it had some stomping ground roots there, or did you also have ways and reasons behind that?
Yeah, certainly. So if you think about going virtual, one of the biggest challenges you have to learn is the nuances of a market. So like, Cody, in Salt Lake, I could name the neighborhood, I could probably name the street, and you in your mind instantly know exactly where that's at. You've got a high level picture of values and neighborhoods and all of that because you've invested so heavily in learning your market. Virtual means you're going into a place that you may or may not know school districts and what side of the road matters and all of these things about a market. So really it comes down to how your ability to find and analyze deals. If you feel really confident in the analyzation process, I've gotten so good at that from so much practice over the years that, you can give me something in Topeka, Kansas and give me a minute and I'll figure it out, because I kind of know what things to look for. I know how to not cross major roads. I know what to look for with school districts. I know what questions to ask if I'm talking to somebody, to a real estate agent or whatever. So that just comes with kind of some practice. So there's kind of two ideas here. One would be, I'm going to pick a virtual market and I'm going to learn that market inside and out. Kind of like what Michael talked about, where, we're going to go to Denver and we're going to pay our dues. We're going to pay the price to really figure that market out, build a list there, do all these things and try to create momentum. And then the other idea is, it really doesn't matter. I don't care. I'm going to market kind of to this giant ocean rather than a pond and just look for leads anywhere. And I know some wholesalers that kind of do that model because they feel really good about taking a seller lead, figuring out the numbers, and they know how to go find buyers. So then it really doesn't matter where it is.
Yeah.
So you kind of think, am I going to be like an anywhere virtual, or am I going to kind of virtually pick a specific market? If you pick a specific market, I totally agree with what you said, Michael. Stay out of the highly competitive big metro markets. There's no need to. If you can pick a market, pick a mid-sized market. I call them sleepy towns. Pick a little bit more off the radar, not getting so much attention, not like these super fast growing top markets. Like I could tell you 10 different people I know that virtually wholesale in Indianapolis, right? Because they heard that that's a great place to do it. So then you got a gazillion people there all virtually wholesaling. Whereas, maybe somewhere else is no one's really looking to go there virtually. So there's a whole lot less competition. Does that make sense? So those are some things to really think about when it comes to choosing that market.
That's fantastic. So maybe one last question before we start deep diving this with you, Michael, in this deal that you're doing in Colorado and that you're closing on very soon, is this something that I'm one of those guys that, at least in when it comes to wholesale, I wholesale right here in the backyard, right? And we do have an operation in Dallas that we visit, but it's very much an operation. It's not much virtual. It really is an office, and I have team members down there. But one of my philosophies is build that cash buyers list, build it up really big so that when you come across deals, you don't have to worry about it and you're going to make as much money as possible. Do you start with that strategy, or does virtual, you don't need that guideline? Are you going to build the cash buyers first, or let's go find a deal and then use some other different strategies? Jerry has fantastic strategies, by the way, if you do not have a cash buyers list, of how to quickly find cash buyers in that area. What is the strategy you use to get that going?
Yeah, for us, we're not worried about the cash buyers, especially in this market. We are always continuously adding cash buyers to our list, through just VAs and maybe some ads out there, and just networking in general. So we'll find like a few really solid players in the market, maybe find a realtor who understands investing as well, potentially for boots on the ground. But really, the cash buyers, as you guys know, in this market, if you have a deal, they're going to be a dime a dozen. So we don't worry about that as much. And, maybe that's a little bit different than some others do it. But we haven't had as much trouble in hotter markets. Now, we've found dispoing a deal in the middle of nowhere, Minnesota might be a little bit more difficult. But for the most part, just focusing on the marketing aspect first, and then the cash buyers, we're naturally building a list over time. Yeah. And when we get a deal, we push it out to them.
Yeah, I'd love to weigh in on this too, Cody, because
Please, I'd love it.
Because one of the benefits to the way Cody runs his business is when you build a massive list in your market, like Cody's is whatever it is, 10,000 people, and you push your deal out to that list, you've got so many eyeballs now on that deal that you're going to get a premium. You're going to get that one person who always overpays, right? And it's this outlier, and all of a sudden you make 20,000 more or whatever, 10,000 more, then the market probably really should have paid for it. And I know that's your model, Cody, and it's tremendous and works well. And that's a payoff for spending years of building that cash buyer list. So when you think about virtual, you really should consider that, because if you set up roots in a virtual market like Denver or whatever it is, you should go into that market with the intention of a long play, which is build a massive list, build a lot of momentum with your leads, and all of that's going to pay off huge in the long run. If you don't do it that way, and it's more of a one-off, which are a lot of my deals, because a lot of my virtual deals, Cody and Michael and everyone listening, a lot of them are fix and flip, because in my Finder program, someone brings me a deal, meets my criteria, I buy it, I fix it up, I sell it. And that's nice because I don't really care where it is. If the numbers work, I'm going to sell it retail anyway, so it's fine. Yeah. But when you go wholesale that way, and you're going to wholesale in a virtual market and it's a one-off deal, you've got to implement some strategies where it's more about, I've got a contract, I've got a window of time, what's the fastest way to a buyer? And it may not necessarily be the highest price I can get, because I'm not able to get enough eyeballs to really pull that premium. Yeah. And that's the downside of it that has to be considered and weighed against all of the other pros and cons, right? So it's just a reality of doing it.
That's so good, so true, because yeah, you're right. And we've all been a cash buyer employee where we have the one cash buyer who just buys every single deal. It's just super easy. You make a phone call, you sell the deal. You know you left money on the table, but it was just too easy. Yeah. So don't be that guy. I'm guilty of it, still am today. But yeah, that's fantastic advice.
Here's one, guys, that I think is worthy of saying this. Let's tie this into virtual, whether he meant it or not. This would be something that, even as many years as I've been in it, I would think of, okay, well, what is cost there? And how do I manage a crew virtually? Michael, you're probably doing majority of your stuff where you're doing an assignment, which awesome. Jerry, it sounds like majority of yours, you're doing the rehab. I would love to hear what gives you the confidence. And I think many people are here thinking, where do we get the confidence and the faith and the trust that we will know what these rehab costs are? We'll know what these and ultimately how to run some of these crews virtually. Because I see that as like that's a fantastic question. I've never had to do that.
Yeah. So the way I look at rehabbing is I really dumb it down and simplify it into 3 basic levels of a rehab: light, which is carpet and paint; average, which would be carpet, paint, kitchen, bath; and then heavy, which is like a gut, everything, roof, windows, siding. Like it's just a giant rehab. And in fact, I built an algorithm that kind of takes the square footage of the house, it weighs it against either that light, average, or heavy model, and it gives you pricing that basically is going to get you, 90% of the way accurate, right? Without like no thought process whatsoever. And I found that following those numbers, it really does almost always line up exactly. So because you're either going to do one of those 3 things on a project, essentially. So knowing that, and then making sure that you're budgeting the right rehab number. And again, I like to have a healthy rehab. I really want to go into a rehab with the right budget. Otherwise, all the fun's gone. Like nothing's worse than trying to save a toilet seat because your budget's so tight. I hate that. It's so stressful, because now I got to hire the cheapest guys. They're high drama. It's problem after problem after problem, because I'm trying to do a $30,000 rehab for $20,000, which means I got to cut every corner. I got to hire, unqualified cheap labor and all that. So I don't like to rehab that way. I'd rather make more offers and get a deal with a better margin, where I can go in there and rehab it with the right budget and hire the right guys, than have all of the stress of a tight budget where I under budgeted for it. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So that's kind of, I mean, and if you guys want, I can give you kind of I got a free version of that deal analyzer where it has an algorithm.
Let's put that in there, Jerry. I'd love to put that up. I was going to just say, what's the link? And let me type that in right now.
Yeah, it's just called mydealanalyzer.com.
Okay, so
this is brand new updated. We just actually updated this a week or two ago with the new numbers because, as you guys know, in the past year, labor and material have all skyrocketed.
That's an understatement.
Yeah.
My Deal Analyzer.
Yeah.com. Yeah.
This is where Cody's brain can't think. Analyzer. Give me the spelling.
ANALYZER, I believe.
MyDealAnalyzer.com.
Yeah.
Let's see if this looks good, my friend. How are you liking this? Is that it?
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. So guys, I'm going to leave this up for a while because I think that's something that's super helpful for you guys. That's a great question. Ace of Blades. Solid question there that we're able to do. So now kind of moving into this, let's start getting into this deal. Let's get into the meat potatoes of this where individuals can now take some action. Guys, this is why I say pull out the notepad, pull out the pen, or whether you're typing it, because just the sheer fact of just watching this, let me give you just a small little story. It won't take long. I went to a RIA group in 2011 as an insurance agent. I met this couple, amazing couple. They sat down. I said, hey, how are you guys doing? And they said, great. I'm like, what are you guys here for? And they're like, man, we're looking for our first rental. I'm like, that's fantastic. Fast forward 2015. I met that couple. I was speaking this time and I stand up and I'm talking. And then afterwards I said, oh my gosh, how are you guys doing? It's been 4 years. How many rentals have you picked up? They're like, well, we're still waiting for our first rental. Guys, 4 years. 4 years. They've been going to this and still haven't done their first rental. I'm afraid that that could be the same thing here. I hope you guys know that our intent behind this is action. It's not to come here and be like, man, I just love it. It's just cool. It's fun. I love it. I feel good. That's fantastic. Hopefully you feel good, and that feel good feeling produces action so that you can go out there and get deals. That's really why we do this. So please, please, please jot down the gold nuggets that are going to be shared tonight. So Michael McDonald, tell us, my friend, you said this is it Evergreen, Colorado? Is that the city?
Yep, Evergreen, Colorado. We were marketing to Denver, actually.
Okay.
And this came in from a Facebook ad.
Okay.
So they submitted a web lead on our Facebook.
Okay.
And basically just the normal process. Lead qualified. Reached out to him and had a conversation. Found out his motivation for selling, and then
what was the motivation for selling? So they can understand what it sounds like real time. What did that sound like?
Yeah, absolutely. So he was actually moving to, I think he was moving to Tennessee, just kind of getting to the retirement state, had a business and wanted to just slow it down a little bit and get out of the mountains. So nothing crazy, nothing, divorce or anything like that I was aware of.
There's no like speed or timeline or condition or driver. Driver's just, I wanted to move out of state, but there's no other these pillars really weren't there.
Yeah, no, the motivation was there. He wanted a fast closing. He actually had a bad experience with a realtor. He had the property listed, I think, probably a year ago. And then at the time, it was just so inconvenient for him. The realtor dropped the price without asking, a couple different things that really ticked him off. And so he decided, I'm not doing that again. And so the house was a little outdated, but it wasn't bad by any means. And so more so just wanted to close fast and didn't want to hassle around with listing it.
Okay, perfect. Now virtual, that's different, right? For me, it's like, awesome. When can we meet, right? And we're going to go out there. We're going to meet face to face. Is this stuff that typically can be done while you're on the phone, all in one phone call? I mean, virtually, I'd love to hear what you guys do, because mine is our team's on the phone, they hear motivation, and the next thing is how soon can we get in front of them, right? Mm-hmm. So what does that look like? Are you guys having multiple conversations on an average close, or is this something that's like, no, there's times we're on a phone and we just stay on the phone until we're ready to close right over the phone? What does that look like?
Right. In some cases, that's the case where you're staying on the phone until you can buy the house. But in many cases, you're going to want to get a good understanding of the property condition. It's one thing for the seller to say, oh yeah, it just needs paint carpet, just needs paint carpet. But in many cases, that's, very inaccurate. Most of the time it's a lot more. So in this case, I had a conversation. I just said, hey, look, I'd love to make you an offer. Kind of got a feel for what our competition was. We always ask, hey, why don't you list it? Why don't you just rent it? If giving him all of the options, and he's like, well, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do this. And so, okay, great. Found out there were some other offers coming in, and he just sent us the pictures, and he was really prompt with getting us pictures. And then I believe it was the next day I set up a time to visit with him again. And called him back, and we negotiated a little bit back and forth, and didn't arrive at a price at that time. And it was like a week that went by, and I think he had some lower offers coming in, which was a good thing because it made ours look a little better. Didn't fully give him our offer 100% until we got the contract signed. So
I already love this. Let's hold this thought real quick. Me and Jerry talk about this all the time, but Jerry, does this match? I want to, because you do virtual. Does this match very much the same thing? So this can almost be Bible or standard for everyone. Is it very much what he's saying is the same structure?
Yeah, a little bit different because what I teach my team and what I do is I don't care if we have no idea about condition. Let's get a contract. Everything else we'll figure out later.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, and this is all the time, like even when I buy on market, I don't care really about anything. I obviously I want to contract at a number I think and feel good about. So we might ask questions, how old's the roof? How old's the kitchen? When was the furnace stuff like that. That's fine. And that'll give you a ballpark. But time kills all deals, right? Cody, you say this all the time. So
the only thing that kills it more is attorneys.
Right. Yeah. So every minute that I don't have a contract is an opportunity for me to miss the deal. So I would rather get a contract, find out later I'm off and have to renegotiate price.
Yeah.
And make sure my number's good to go in with when we sign. So that's just, and maybe Michael, you do the same thing, but it's always contract first, questions later, right? Contract first, due diligence later. Contract first, deep dive later. Because when you have a contract, you now bought yourself some time. You've eliminated anybody else from stealing the deal out from under you. And I want to take a minute and talk about this, Cody, because I think what people are reluctant to do this because we have this mindset, and it's probably like growing up in America or whatever, where if I sign a contract, somehow now I'm liable. There's ramifications. There's some kind of legal thing. There's going to be consequences. I might get in trouble, right? If things don't work out. There's this fear that everybody has. And there is nothing that's going to happen. Like the worst thing that could happen is you lose earnest money, and we don't even have earnest money with off market. Like no one's going to sue you, take you to court, and a judge is going to force you to buy a house, right? It's just not going to happen. So don't worry about all of that. I make sure we have very clear clauses. I'm very upfront with sellers, and I say, listen, this is the number that works for us, but we are going to need to make sure, and we're going to need to verify and validate some of these things. But let's get this in place first. So that way, when I come back to them and I say, hey, you remember how you told me that the roof was brand new? It's not brand new. Now that changes things. And right, you can kind of I set up all the time to where if I have to come back and renegotiate because I gathered new information, that they're aware of that. And it's not this like offensive thing now or like, and don't do it as a bait and switch. We never bait and switch it. We never, intentionally go in high just to come down and go low. That's going to really create a lot of bad will, and you're going to burn bridges doing that. So go with your best number, but make sure you get that contract as soon as you possibly can.
Before we there's going to be a ton of questions, and I don't want to get struggling here. I know this could be a little curveball, but here's one for someone that's new. Jerry, Michael, maybe give your top three so we can just say, hey, if you were to say someone's new at this, what are your three top states?
Michael, what do you say?
He's like, I'm not saying.
Well, I mean, we do the most deals in Nebraska, but that's where we buy a lot of properties. So actually, we're probably buying 50-50 right now, but that's because we're buying so many in Nebraska.
Yeah.
But so, I mean, I like Nebraska. I'm biased because I'm from there, but I've had good luck in so far Missouri. Missouri's a great state, and Iowa. Iowa's been good to us as well.
Man, it's odd. It's funny you say that. My personal opinion is I love the Midwest. The reason why I love the Midwest, so I love all the way from Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio, Indiana, down to up more to Nebraska, Iowa, some of those kind of moving a little bit further. The reason why is because I feel like there is such a stock of like 1940 to 1950, 1960 built homes.
Yeah.
Most of the Midwest was built in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. So you have so much inventory that is dated, that's older, that needs repair, that's distressed. Way more than you find in Vegas and Phoenix in the West.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the entire state of Utah is 20 years old, really. So there's a lot of newer. Everything's built in the 90s and up. When you go to Vegas and Utah and Arizona,
yeah,
still dated, right? You can still find dated stuff, but not like stuff built in the 40s that's knob and tube, right? I mean, electrical, everything dated, and so that creates a ton of opportunity for flipping.
Yeah.
Don't forget about those 1800 houses, Jerry.
Oh yeah, yeah. You got. I mean, I just flipped a house in Indiana that was literally built in 1890 something, right? So, yeah. And it had foundation issues. So there's so much of that, and it creates just a ton of opportunity. That's
if there's any side I like of it is like picking out the data. So I won't throw out 3 states because I couldn't tell you. I'd probably lie and tell you Hawaii, Alaska, and all the ones that are impossible. No, just kidding. I would say the biggest thing is reverse engineer. So how we pick Dallas ultimately to be another location, and not really virtual, but another location that we'd open up doors, is I looked at what is a deal in Utah and what is it that pays us the most. And then we found a market that mirrored us, that looked very much similar. But second of all, that these pockets that I'm talking about that are deals in Utah, they're everywhere in Dallas. Like you get a slingshot and flick a rock, no matter what direction you flick it, you're hitting one of those pockets. They're everywhere. They're everywhere. There's endless amounts. So I love what Jerry said, this endless amounts of opportunity of what a deal is, this 1940 build, 1950 build, and it's endless. Like it just goes on. Every home, a plethora of distressed properties that come to ultimately distressed property owners. And it's reverse engineering what a deal is.
Yeah. Now, Cody, I would, if I were to add 2 more things to picking your virtual market, I would actually advise people to stay away from Texas, Florida, Utah, and the other, non-disclosure states. So a non-disclosure state means that they don't have to disclose the sale information. They're not mandated to do that, which means unless you're able to set up a really good team, on the ground team, you're going to have trouble comping properties and getting data. It's just going to be tougher, right? And so you can Google non-disclosure states. There's 12 of them. And I just would right out of the bat, by going to a non-disclosure state virtually, you're already creating one more layer of challenge. Right?
Great insight.
Your Texas team is on the ground. So it's virtual in a way, but it's also not, because you created a team again on the ground. But for everybody else, if you're going to do this from your home office and pick a state, I'd stay out of the non-disclosures, because you're going to have a heck of a time there. And then if you follow some of my on-market strategy where we go straight to listing agents and double dip, I would also stay out of the non-dual agency states. So there's a handful, just Google this, but if the state doesn't participate in dual agency, that makes it much more difficult if you do on-market. Now, if you just do off-market, it doesn't matter. But those are 2 more things to think about. Fantastic input.
So let's get back to this deal now. Natalie, I hope that helped answer some of the state questions. So Michael, you hear some motivation, wants to close quickly is really the big one. You said it took about a week before you really got to the point where you're talking numbers. I love what you said. This is one of my favorite things, and one of my favorite trainings is never present an offer until they're ready to sign. And too many times, that's probably the biggest mistake I see, where individuals leave an offer. In fact, me and Jerry have talked about this, even with his own personal business, right? It's sometimes we go in there, and it's because we struggle through this, guys, that we've learned this, is we've seen the odds of when we make an offer and how many follow through and we get the deal versus how many we lose to another individuals, because usually they take those offers and now they have a bona fide offer and they just use it against you to get someone to come up $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, or they just keep shopping until they get the highest and best and they move on. So I love what you said, but we didn't present an offer until he's ready to sign. That's huge. So what did that look like? How did you know he was ready to sign before you started presenting the numbers?
Well, he had another offer and I said, hey, if I use the if then statement, right? I said, if we could be around here, is that something that would sound good to you? And he's like, well, no, I need to be at least this. And I said, okay, well, let me see what I can do. And basically when we got time to the phone call to make the offer, is I just gave him what he was asking for under one circumstance. I know, Jerry, we don't typically do earnest money, but this guy was a savvy business dude. He was living in a estimate of 700,000 mountain house in Evergreen, Colorado. He wanted earnest money. He wanted 10,000 earnest money. That was non-negotiable, and that was horrifying.
Non-negotiable or non-refundable?
Non-negotiable for the earnest money, and the earnest money was technically non-refundable, which is absolutely kind of crazy now looking back, because we actually did close on that deal. So what I did was I took my contact that was a cash buyer. Well, first of all, I got it under contract, right? We agreed to the terms. We kind of went back and forth, and I was like, well, listen, we don't typically do this much earnest money. How about this? How about that? I was doing whatever I could. He's like, nope, I won't do a deal unless it's $10,000 earnest money hard to the title company. I was like, well, we're going to roll the dice. So I said, let's do it. We put basically, before we put it under contract, let me back up a bit here. We actually had, because I talked about the on-site review, the inspection with our cash buyers. He didn't want to sign an agreement until we actually had done that, which is kind of backwards from what you would normally do, right? You would typically get under contract, put it out there. So I'm like, all right, I got to get somebody through there. I need to kind of get, a green light, good to go. So my cash buyer / realtor came through and he said he'd buy it. And the price that I told him was obviously higher than the price that I knew I was going to get it under contract for. So I was very confident. I basically just sold the deal for convenience versus trying to get the highest assignment fee because of the risk I had on the line. It was a $380,000 purchase price, wholesale that for, $10,000 higher than that. But I knew it was sold because I pretty much simultaneously got the contract signed and then the assignment done.
Wow, there's so many things I want to talk about.
Break it down, my friend. We got some kind words here from Angela. Thank you, Angela, for the kind words. But Jerry, break that down, because there was so much value in gold that I think a repeat of what he just said is now take it down even slower. Because I agree with you. There was so much value shared right there. The guy had to get a drink because he just spit it all out, right? Like he has to get. So Jerry, break down the gold nuggets, my friend.
So guys, first of all, if you're not familiar with what earnest money is, that's money you put up you put up front at the time of signing the contract with the seller. Technically, that money should be held in escrow with a title company. That way, if there's issues, you can get it back. I advise never to give that to the seller. Now, Michael, I don't know if you gave it to the seller. Okay, good. So don't give it to the seller. You'll never get it back. Let's say there's a title issue or something. But that earnest money then is applied towards the purchase. So if you wholesale, you get that refunded back to you. But savvy sellers and all real estate agents require earnest money, and it's your good faith deposit on the deal. So it's like, hey, I'm serious. Here's some earnest money. Now, your goal, if you put down earnest money, is to always protect your earnest money, or at least understand the risks of that earnest money. So Michael said, I made my earnest money non-refundable for $10,000. So guys, he went into that deal well aware of the risk. If he could not find a buyer, he would forfeit his $10,000 to the seller. Now, if you can't stomach that, then don't ever agree to do that, right? Don't do that if you can't stomach a $10,000 loss, because that is a risk that you run.
Or know how to buy it. or buy it if it comes down to it.
Or take it down. Take down the deal and close. Yeah, exactly. So you have to manage that risk. And so where's your risk tolerance on deals? The seller said to Michael, I will not do this deal without a $10,000 earnest money. Michael said, I'm willing to do that. Now he took it a step further on the risk level, on the risk scale, which was he did not have a contract, but he took his deal to a potential buyer without a contract. Now you guys, I hope you can see the inherent risk there. Whenever you're working with buyers and you don't have a contract, there's nothing between you and that buyer, right? You're spending time, you're bringing people to the property, and you don't have a contract. Now, in your case, that's what he wouldn't sign until you went through your due diligence, right? So, there's all these different things where this deal could have gone bad or where you took on more risk. But guys, I mean, this is the business. If you're not willing to learn how to manage risk and take on risk, you're going to limit the ability to do deals and what you can do and what you can't do. So you just got to know how to manage that effectively, I think is the point I want to make. So ideally, we don't take buyers to properties without a contract in place, but you did it reverse. You did not have a contract. You took some risk that your buyer would not somehow go backdoor you, which can happen. You pre-sold it is what I call that, which is you got your buyer on board knowing the seller's number, and then you put the deal together reverse. So it's a little bit of a reverse wholesale in a way, because you got your buyer first, then contracted with the seller, and then went back to your buyer and did an assignment, I'm assuming, right?
Correct.
Yep. Yeah. Was that the guy you end up selling it to?
It was, yeah. Nobody else knew about that deal except for him. He got a smoking deal.
So I call that, he calls it reverse wholesaling. I call it cash buyer's employee, but there's guys, something else that Jerry tapped on that I just want to reiterate that's really crucial, guys, is everything's a risk in life. Waking up and getting out of bed, there's a risk to that. Getting in your car and driving to the office, there's a risk to that. So that tolerance, right? But there's a risk in everything. And then you might be listening to this, you might be thinking, gosh, Michael McDonald, that's hard. Jerry, that's hard. Cody, that's hard. So is going to a 9-to-5 for the next 50 years. And so I always tell people, pick your hard. You're either going to have hard going to the office or hard building a wholesaling business. Pick your hard. And one of them is just going to have a different reward system. Yeah. And depending on what rules you're playing, you can play the rules of 9-to-5. It's going to be hard. And these rules will have an outcome. And you're going to play the rules of wholesaling. It's going to be hard. And there's going to be an outcome. So now you just got to look at it. What's the outcome you're looking for in life? But pick your hard. They're both going to be hard. 9-to-5 is not easy, my friends. And nor is wholesaling. But pick your hard now and be willing to get that risk tolerance. There's a risk waking up and drinking water. There's a risk to that. Now it's a small risk, but there's a risk to that.
I like to say, Cody, life is hard if you're rich and life is hard if you're poor. But I'd sure rather have a hard life and be rich than a hard life and be poor. I mean, that's just me.
I think there's a comedian out there that says, but money can buy a wave runner. And I've never seen anyone on a wave runner that doesn't have a huge smile on their face. It's money does buy happiness for some.
Yeah, money doesn't buy happiness, but being poor doesn't buy anything. So I don't know.
That's right. That's right. Here's something good for virtual. I might be able to tap into this. This is very, very easy, guys, because this can be done in any market, and I could do this in any market. It's just simply in just Facebook, guys. I'll give you one strategy that will build this super, super quick. So if you're looking to build a cash buyers list, I do have a YouTube video on this, but this is as simple as it is. Go to any big Facebook group full of wholesalers. They're all out there. Go look them up. And while you're in that group, you'll find that little magnifying glass, the search bar. All you got to do is click the magnifying glass within the group, not on Facebook, but within the group, and just type in your state, cash buyer. Hit enter, and you'll see every post that's ever been put in that Facebook group that says those keywords, your state and cash buyer. And you'll start to see all the people that says, hey, I have a deal in Vegas. Where are my cash buyers at? And someone does me. And all you got to do is PM, or DM, whatever one you want to call it. DM, direct message them. Hey, I saw your buyer in Vegas. Love to add you to my cash buyers list. I got a hot deal right now. Awesome. Yeah. Email it to this. Boom. You just added one. And you can do that. We have virtual assistants doing that for our market, over 250 a day, guys. It's the easiest method out there. So that's a quick way. Diego, hopefully that helps you, my friend. Okay, so let's get back to this deal. You get out there, you find this deal, you have your method of doing it, you get it under contract. This one you said you closed on and just ended up buying it. And what was the purchase price of this you said?
Are we still talking about the Colorado wholesale?
Oh yeah. Did you not close on it?
No. So we assigned it to the guy who went and looked at it. Yeah.
Assigned to the guy. So you put under contract at what was the purchase price?
380.
380. Okay.
Yeah.
What was ARV to give people a perspective when this all fixed up? What would it sell at?
Well, at the time, I thought it was 600,000.
Yeah.
I was curious, and I checked Zillow recently, and somehow it's at 700 now. So I don't know what button he clicked on Zillow how that went up so much, but yeah, it was 75% minus repairs in that market.
Okay. So you've got that. You put it under contract at a great price. Ultimately, this buyer goes out, loves it, wants to do it. What were you able to assign this contract for, my friend?
We assigned it for 380,000.
Oh, you put under contract at 380?
390. Sorry.
So you put under contract at 380.
Yes.
Assigned it for 390.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. So a $10,000 assignment. Is that correct?
That's right.
There we guys. Go. The victory bell. All right.
I want to point out something, Cody, because Michael's well aware of what he did here, which was he said, I wholesaled it to him for convenience. Now, I like that you said that, and I like that you're aware of that, because if we were offline right now and Cody was your coach and he was going to be in your face a little bit, you know what he would say? He would say, bro, you left money on the table by not building a cash buyer list or having a cash buyer list or working to get that in front of more people. Now, there's some truth to that, but guys, there's also some value in convenience. Like there's nothing like I called up one person, they want the deal, I make 10 grand, I'm on to the next deal. I'm happy with this, right? But you have to be aware of the consequences. Whenever you take the easy way out, whenever you take the first buyer that comes along, you haven't given your deal a fair shot at a higher number, and you need to own that, right? So just own it. That's all. Say, you know what? I'm going to take the 10. I could probably get a whole lot more if I was willing to get this deal in front of more eyeballs, but I'm not right now, and I'm okay with that, and I'm going to take the 10 and run. Okay? Yeah. So as long as you're aware of that and you just know that that's what's happening, because you got to always remember the way you get more for a deal is you get your deal in front of more eyeballs. The more eyeballs that see it, the higher price you're always going to get. That's why a lot of deals, Cody and I will buy it, relist it on the MLS, knowing that now I go from 10,000 eyeballs to 30,000 eyeballs, and I'm going to get a higher price.
Yeah, and that strategy is so good right now, Jerry, the wholesale market. Michael, do you do wholesale as well?
We closed on 4 last week.
Okay. Yeah. So the wholesale market, guys, 'tis the season. I want you to understand there's 2 big things to be watching and always be watching and be aware of. And this will help you really find the confidence and trust and faith that if you're going to purchase that it's really good or not. And that's it's the market to be doing wholesaling in. There's not enough inventory. So let's talk about that one right now. So there's not enough inventory in the whole state of Utah. I think it's like 1,500 listings. Guys, that's absurd. That's beyond absurd. That's crazy. Because there's more than 1,500 people moving to the state of Utah. So these are the 2 stats I'm always watching so that I understand where I'm at within the market to know when should I be more selective on my fix and flips or when I should be more selective on what deals I'm going to take down for myself and do a wholesale deal. I'm always watching inventory, which is, I want to say historically, but obviously there's a point where it was lower than that. But guys, there's not enough inventory. And then match that with there's a lot of people moving to the state of Utah. We call it in-migration. And you can find these reports in any state of how many people are moving into your state and how much inventory. And because there's such a huge gap in between those 2 stats alone, it is such a great market right now to be buying a lot of our deals and just simply, as long as they're livable, lendable, put them right back on the market and just get top dollar. And we've seen deals that we put it out for $299 because it wasn't fully repaired. And if it were fully repaired, it'd go for $350, but we put it out at $299. So it's a little bit more than a wholesale, or a assignment where I'm getting $15,000. Now maybe I'm going to make $30,000. So I'm doubling that. And that offer gets bid it up by 10 retail buyers and it ended up going for $350. And now, guys, it doesn't appraise for that. But guess what? This individual says, and whatever it doesn't appraise for, I'll bring in cash. Don't worry about it. So we ended up getting full retail as if it was repaired for a home that needed 25 grand to make it that full ARV, after repair value. So this is a great market to really be thinking about. Again, there's that risk reward, taking down a home, but you can turn a $10,000 assignment now into potentially a $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 deal by just changing the exit of the strategy, which I love this market.
I would throw in there too that traditionally the wholesale model, like Cody mentioned, where it's clean and livable, lendable, that works best for wholesaling because now you're targeting a retail buyer with that deal and you know that it's clean enough for them to buy it. But don't underestimate the exact same strategy for cash buyers. Like that never used to be a strategy. Now it's a big strategy. I'll buy stuff that's cash only. It will not get a loan, and we'll still put it out on the open market, relisted, and I'll get way higher price than anybody on my cash buyer list because there's just that many more cash buyers that are looking on market as well, looking for deals. So it's crazy.
So true. So true. Anything you want to pipe in on that, Mike?
Yeah, like Jerry said, is we literally had listed one of our properties. Our best cash buyer said, hey, I have a 1031 exchange. I will give you 10,000 over list price if you just take it off the market. I even pay the realtor. So we just sold one. We literally just bought it and sold it for way more than we thought. It was almost retail price, and it was to our best cash buyer.
Well, you know why that is, and that's the exact reason why you do that. Because 1031, when you do a 1031, what you're doing is you're rolling over your profits from one deal to another deal, and you have a window. You have a 90-day window to identify.
Locate. Yeah.
How much is it? It's 90 days, isn't it?
It varies because I think I've heard as long as it could vary, but yes, essentially 90 days.
1031 investors are highly motivated buyers.
Highly.
If they do not find that next deal fast, they lose their 1031, which means
they pay capital gains.
They can't defer taxes. Yeah. So they are amazing buyers for overpaying. Like you said, he paid almost retail. He didn't care. It wasn't about the deal. It was about the tax. That's why he bought it. He did not care about buying value. He cared about rolling over his tax. So that's why. Now, you would have never found that guy had you not put that thing out to the world, and he was that one buyer willing to pay way more than everybody else. And it's the same rule. More eyeballs, higher price.
That's exactly right. Here's a great question. This is really speaking my language, y'all. Have you ever had those 2-3 VIP buyers that you'll sell all your deals for a little less because they bought several deals from you? I have one asking me to send them the first before blasting. That guy is very, very good and very creative. And he's trying to do it because he knows if many eyes are on that, his price is now going up. And I would always say, don't feel bad about that. At the end of the day, who's more important? Taking care of you and your family or taking care of the cash buyer? And I think we might sometimes think, well, I want him to win. Yeah, it's okay. If he doesn't win, he won't make an offer, and that's okay. But that doesn't mean someone else won't make an offer and is okay with making a little bit less on a deal to get a deal, and that's okay. I will never have 2 to 3 VIP cash buyers, because here's what you also do is you'll put a home under contract, and I've seen this countless times from students I've worked with, even at my Scale event. I had an individual from Idaho that swore by this. And I'm telling you, he was as blue as I was telling him this is the craziest thing ever, is as blue as he's saying, no, man, I love it. And I said, cool, let's do a breakdown on their last 5 deals. Of his last 5 deals, 2 of them, he had to cancel the contract because his buyer says, nah, it's not a deal. Is that true, guys? Because if they tell you that and you believe that and you write your story, what if you would have had 10,000 cash buyers on your list? I can guarantee you it may have been a deal. Now, here's what makes it no deal to someone. If you have 3 buyers, maybe this buyer A is only loving this area of the town. And so any deal outside of that area, it's always a no for him. Maybe it's like, nope, unless it hits this area, it's a no. Does it mean it's no deal? No, it just means it's not a deal for this buyer because he loves this area and he doesn't like this area. Or what if someone has a fix and flip going on and they can only handle one fix and flip, and it's a no for him because he can't handle 2 fix and flips? Does it mean no, it's not a deal? No, it means no, it's not a deal for him because he can't handle 2 fix and flips at the same time. So the value of many cash buyers is you overcome any of these issues. There's a buyer for any home out there. And we have individuals that are in our market that we JV with because they come to us saying, hey, I don't have a cash buyer on my list that wants this. And we look at it and we're like, man, that's a deal. We'll pump it out. Let's split the profits and we'll pump it out to our cash buyers list. And they're glad to get 50% of something than 100% of nothing. And we pump it out to our cash buyers, and we'll have 20 people, 30 people go out on that inspection date and go look at this home. Why? Because we have a ton of eyes on this. And to 20 people, they're like, yes, I want this. And for the vast majority, they're like, nope, I don't want it. It's okay. There was still 20 buyers for that home, and it ended up being like a $30,000 assignment. In his head, he thought it wasn't a deal. It was a deal. He just didn't have a cash buyer. So I will never, ever, 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 you'll never hear me preach this or allow it. If someone will allow me to get into their business, allow a 2-3 VIP buyers, because if they say no, you're simply thinking, oh, it's not a deal, I did it wrong. No, it's probably 90% of the time in this market, you just don't have enough eyes on it.
Yeah, if you do go to that repeat cash buyer, just know that you're shortcutting, you're leaving so much margin on the table. And why? The only reason why is because you're being lazy. You're not building a list. Now, if you're super early on and you know about them, kind of like Michael's deal, where you're like, dude, I get my deal done, it's fine, it's for convenience. I know I'm leaving money on the table because I don't have a big cash buyer list. Own it, but just listen to what Cody's saying here. The reason why Cody averages 30,000 a wholesale is because he's built a massive cash buyer list, and the bigger that list, the more he gets per deal. And that's just the name of the game.
Guys, just to put it in perspective, when we had 2,000 cash buyers, our average assignment was 18,000. We jumped it up to about between 9 and 10,000 right now, and it's up to 32,000. So directly proportionate to however many cash buyers, we've seen that expand. We're excited to get to 20,000 cash buyers, to see that grow to 35, 37, 38. Sky's the limit. The only limit is not the cash buyer, it's what you put on it. So best way, guys, this is a good question. What is your best way, method, madness to this? How do you get boots on the ground? How do I find good boots on the ground? A good property manager, a realtor, inspector, contractor?
Yeah, Michael, you want to chime in on that? And then I've got a lot to say about that.
Sure. For us, I like finding at first, and before you have your your large cash buyer pool up, I like finding another wholesaler in the market who might have a cash buyers list, just to get a feel for the market. But once you have that feel for market, you're going to be giving away a lot of profit if you continue to just joint venture with every deal. So I like to just figure out, okay, somebody who can just go look at the property. They're not expecting a large amount of money. Most cases, it's a realtor who's happy with, helping you out. And so that's worked well for us, is just either an investor who has experience, kind of knows the lingo, and or a realtor who knows the lingo.
Yeah, so great. That's awesome. So a couple things here. The most critical person that you have to have, in my opinion, on call is somebody that can do walkthroughs, property walkthroughs, because you can find a good real estate agent. That just takes a little bit of effort. Ask around, interview people, talk to them. I try to go with agents that specialize in investors. They understand what we're doing. That's important, but that's not your urgency. Your urgency is always, I got a contract, I got a window of time, I got to get some eyes on this property. I need to get somebody over there right now, especially if you're on market where you've got very small windows to work with. So I like to have 3 or 4 guys that I can just say, hey, I need you at that property in 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and do a walkthrough. And this person does not have to be highly skilled in contracting. They need to be able to take pictures on an iPhone and a video on an iPhone and get that to me in a Dropbox or Google Drive link so that I can see what the heck is going on. So I try to have 2 or 3 people. I pay them between $25 to $50 for a walkthrough. I try not to send them out to properties unless I first have a contract, because if I don't have a contract, I might be wasting money sending someone out there. $50 at a time adds up, right? So I get a contract, send my guy on the ground. He goes over, does a walkthrough. I verify and validate that the condition is what I think it is. He does a video of the neighborhood, so I see the street, right? I don't need to be there and do all of that to understand what's going on. I can do that from my home office if I have good pictures and if I have good video. So I think that guy is your key guy, because you need them instantly as soon as you start talking on the phone and you start putting stuff under contract. Everybody else, you got a minute to figure out, and you can get referrals and, you know, get a good contractor, get a good realtor, get a good inspector. That's just start asking questions, right? Like I go to every big investor group and I say, hey, I need a trash out guy. I need a plumber. I need an electrician. Who are you guys using for this? Who are you guys using for that? And everyone will chime in. You'll get 20 people comment on a roofer. And it's like, awesome. Then I go get all those guys to bid my job. So finding skilled people is easy. Tap into the marketplace or the investor groups on Facebook, and people will give you their awesome people, right? So the boots on the ground is a little tougher because that's an on-call kind of person. That's how I'd answer that. Where do you find that guy, Jerry? Do you put out a post? Is it a referral from a person you trust in the market? Yeah, I run posts on Marketplace, the investor groups, Craigslist, and we basically just say, hey, looking for somebody in this market, can get out to properties pretty quickly, pays $50. You know, I kind of just give the criteria. And then I have a very detailed breakdown of how I want them to do the pictures and video. So it's really important you train your guy on, I teach them macro and micro. In other words, I want to see the entire house from the sidewalk, and I want to zoom in on the brick that needs tuck pointing, right? So give me the whole room and give me the issues in the room. Give me the whole kitchen and give me the issues in the kitchen. So I want to see 300 pictures of a house, both, you know, big picture and small picture. And then I make them do a virtual tool. I want you to video walking in the front door, left to right, up and down, walk into the kitchen, up and down, left and right, right? I want a virtual tour of this house in video, in addition to, you know, a gazillion pictures. Amazing. Amazing. Here's a good one. I think very little do we capture and bring this. So I love that this individual talked about this. Jerry, on the days, do you ever had bad mental days where you're like, man, I need to cash out, I need to check out? And I think this probably will be a question for all three of us. And what's the truth behind that, Jerry? So here's how I'd answer this. Are you feeling tired? Good. Are you feeling rejected? Good. Are you feeling like you missed out on that deal of a lifetime? Good. Are you sick and tired of getting on the phones and people saying no? Good. Because that's how you get better. It's the sucky part, and doing it anyway is how you master this business. Yeah. I don't feel like doing it sometimes. I just don't, but I do it anyway, and it sucks, and I do it anyway because that's when I have the most amazing breakthroughs, is when I get out of my freaking comfort zone. And I want to live in my comfort zone, because as humans, we want to avoid danger, where we have fight or flight, right? But there's no saber-toothed tiger chasing you, even though that's how your genetic DNA is made up. It's to be fearful of a saber-toothed tiger that's going to eat you. But it's not real. It's all perceived. So you know what? I just have trained myself that if it hurts and if it sucks and I don't like it and I'm frustrated, good. Because that means I'm going to have growth and I'm going to do it anyway. I love that you shared that. Now, you know, guys, I try to make sure that I take care of myself. I try to make time for my family. I try to make sure I relax. But I don't need to get motivated. There's nothing in my life happening where I need some kind of motivation. Like, you know what? I wish I was motivated right now to do the business. And I don't know if that's just me or what that is, but if that's you, then you got to get some things figured out here. But becoming financially free and living the life of your dreams, I don't need motivated to do that. I naturally wake up excited to do that, which means I'm going to plow through all my obstacles in the parts of this business that I hate and suck, and the downtime and the deals that I lose money and all of the things that happen that just are going to happen. Yeah. Just plow through. So the big thing, guys, behind that, in a very real sense,
I remember one thing that stood out huge at a Tony Robbins event. I took my whole team. They wanted to go out there, and I love investing in my team. You hear the CEO that says, "Hey, what if we invest in our team and they get better and they leave?" And the president says, "Well, what if we don't and they stay?" Right? So we're always trying to invest in our team and make them better. That's something that we're really, really big on. So we go to Tony Robbins. And the one thing that stood out is he said every single day he jumps into this cold water. It's like 40 something degrees out in his backyard. And he'll wake up in the morning and he gets in and jumps and immerses his whole body and then gets out, right? Every day he fights this. Every day. He's not one day that his mind isn't saying, "Dude, Tony, today's okay. We don't need to do this today." Every day his mind is telling him, "Bro, it's warmer right here in our bed. Bro, you don't need to do it today. It's not worth it." But he tells his mind that he's not negotiating with it. Like, I think he even used the point, he's like, "Don't F with me." He's like, "I will not negotiate with you." Right? Like, he's like intense, but every day his mind is telling him, stay comfortable every day. So we hear about mindset, and that's good. But at the same time, you got to remember, like Jerry just said, your mind is like, "Ooh, if we go outside, there could be a horse that tramples you or a saber-toothed tiger." It's because your mind wants you comfortable. You have to remind your mind you're not negotiating. Now, also to that point, I want to tell you there are non-negotiables. So Friday night, there's non-negotiables. I will go on a date night with my wife. Or there's non-negotiables. I won't miss my boys' sports. Now, guys, these non-negotiables have always changed in time. As I first started, those non-negotiables, it was, we're going to put forth the sacrifice up front, but I had my buy-in from my wife. I even had the buy-in from my kids. Now, they don't remember always what that buy-in is, right? They're young, but we had the buy-in as a family that dads could miss some sports events, could be missing dinner, could be missing putting them to bed some nights for the short term until we can build this up and get a business and get a team around it, processes and systems in place so we can scale this thing, but ultimately also not lose track of why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because, yes, I do want to increase my income. I'd be lying if I told you that wasn't a reason. But another one was my lifestyle. I wanted to be able to enjoy it the way I wanted to. I truly wanted freedom. And freedom is not tied to money. Freedom is not tied to when I have 5 million in the bank. Freedom is not tied to when I have 50 rentals. Freedom is to literally wake up and say, what do I want to do today? And if I want to hang out with the kids, that I have that option. And remember that, because it's easy to fall in the trap that when you get successful, it's always to get more successful. And people think success is what the world would say. You see magazines out there, they never talk about most successful families out there, right? That doesn't sell. They talk about Forbes 500, top 500 companies, the most successful companies out there. And that's all we see. And so we tie success to win money and we're the top 500 company. That's not it, guys. Remember why you got into this. I've done a survey many times. The two top, it comes back to what I said. Make more money and financial freedom. Those are the biggest things, like freedom of how you live your life. But yet you'll find out you're going to make more money. Michael will tell you, Jerry will tell you, I'll tell you. It's incredible. It prints off bills that you're like, I don't know where these dollar bills just came from. You look at your bank account and you're like, I've never seen this much money in my bank account. But sometimes, and most times, I see the entrepreneurs forget number two, and that is freedom and lifestyle. And guys, hold on to that and remember what you commit to, that you're going to sacrifice up front so that you can have this lifetime. Otherwise, it's just a high-paying job where you're working more hours than you did at your 9 to 5.
Love that.
Mike, anything you want to throw on that?
Man, I don't really know how to follow up with it. You guys really nailed it on the head right there. But one thing that I will add is, like you said, Cody, I mean, I literally have that on my wall behind me. Remember why, for a reason, is because that is my reminder not to be lazy, to not just settle, because I know why I started this. I know why I've sacrificed. And in the beginning, yeah, you're going to sacrifice a lot more. And I don't think I'm going to chill until I've retired my parents or I've achieved that 100% financial freedom, because that's what it's all about, guys. I mean, we work hard so we can spend time with our family, go on a vacation when we want, and have that freedom. And yeah, that's about it for that.
Awesome, guys. Here's a good one. I don't know this. I'm going to let you guys attack it. But how do you show someone a potential buyer virtually? How do you show your potential buyers virtually without them going directly to the seller? That's a big problem. So that's something I have boots on the ground. Obviously, not just boots on the ground. I have a team in place that we never go unattended. Are every one of your Jerry, I know a lot of your swing to this point right now is really wholesaling or fix and flipping, but I know you've done a ton of wholesale assignments. And Michael, that's obviously a big one of yours. Do you make sure that there's always someone in attendance there, or do you allow them to just go out freely?
Yeah, so I'll answer. It's really not a whole lot different than on the ground, right? Because virtually means that you're not there. You're running your business from somewhere else. To me, that's what virtual really means.
Great point.
But you have a team, right? You should have a team on the ground that's doing things in place of you. Cody, in a way, you're virtual in the fact that you're not going on that appointment. You've got somebody that does that. So you treat it the same way, right? In fact, most of our properties are vacant to begin with. So there's no seller there. If there is a seller living in the home, then we make sure we get that seller out of there. I don't want him home when we do our walkthrough with everybody. So we'll give him $100 gift card, say, why don't you go for a couple hours and have fun? And then, you can have your boots on the ground, same guy that's taking your pictures. He can open the door for everybody, let them in, be around, keep an eye on things. Sometimes my agent that I work with, he's willing to do. So whoever you have on your team can do that and be there if you're feeling like you want somebody present. But I mean, most of the time we just set it up and the seller's out of there and they go in and I'm not worried about it. Ultimately, I've got a contract with the seller. So people can try to backdoor me, but that's rare and far and few in between where that happens if you have a contract.
So I have that's really good, Jerry, but I have something to add to that, because this has actually happened to us where we've had buyers try to go behind our backs before. We always try to have a really good rapport with sellers. We always try to be as transparent as possible, letting them know, hey, we're probably going to partner with another investor that's going to end up purchasing this property. But at the end of the day, you're always going to have somebody who's probably not completely ethical, unfortunately, who's going to do that. So what do you do to protect yourself in those circumstances? Do you just basically have a conversation with the seller ahead of time, or do you just worry about it if it happens to come up?
So we just have a standard practice that we do on all of our off-market deals where I file an affidavit of memorandum. And standard practice, what it does is title records it. It clouds title that you have an interest in the property. It doesn't show your contract or your contract price. And if that seller and some kind of other buyer try to backdoor you and go and close around you, that's going to pop up in essence like a lien. It clouds title. The seller doesn't sign it. You sign it. Title company can record it. Guys, I'll give you that for free. I got one for free if you want it. I can give you a link to download.
Let's do it. What is it, brother?
It's not a vanity URL, but I'll look it up real quick and tell you. But it's a really simple one-page document, and it's until it happens to you, people don't do it. And then when you get backdoored, then you make it a standard practice.
Yeah. And by the way, in some states like Utah, it's called a notice of interest.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
We've filed some since that happened. In fact, or maybe you've had a seller who received a higher offer and your contract meant nothing to them for whatever reason, and so they may say, hey, something came up, I got to cancel the contract. That would still protect you from a circumstance like that too, to say if the other company tried to close, they actually would show that on the title, so they wouldn't be able to unless they had talked to you first.
Yeah. You cloud it. They have to clear you before they can move on. That's exactly right. Here's a good one, guys. How do I properly market my deal? Like, what exactly do I put on my description for Facebook Marketplace? Now, guys, this is going to vary in any market. Because I'm not a real estate agent, I cannot put it on a Facebook Marketplace. I cannot solicit to people that have not said, please show me of all your deals. So when I put on Facebook Marketplace, what they're saying is, you're soliciting this property to someone else, and now you're acting like a realtor. So I cannot in Utah. In Texas, we can put it on Facebook Marketplace. It's totally fine. You have equitable interest in it, and you can market the contract. So really know each state and know, are you a real estate agent or are you not? If you're not a real estate agent in Utah, mine's very simple. I can only do it to those that have raised their hand saying, let me know about your deal. If they have not raised their hand, I cannot show them this legally, or I'm acting like a realtor in the state of Utah. So know those regulations, and it's going to vary state to state. That's the one thing that varies and is different in every state. Is real estate is not defined the same in every state. It's defined very different in every state. So know your laws and know whether go in with the question of, I'm not a realtor, what can I do? Or I am a realtor and what can I do? And just follow it to your state. There's not any one way that fits, the one glove that fits all, or one shoe that fits all foot for this. It's very much going to be very different according to where you live. Jerry, anything you want to add to that, or pretty simple?
No, I mean, this is an area that they're cracking down on quite a bit with some of the new wholesaling regulation that we're seeing come out, is what you can and can't do as far as marketing contracts. So Oklahoma just came out and passed really strict laws against it. And in Michigan, we can do it, Cody. We can market a contract there, which is kind of fun. So just know what you can and can't do. That's all. Yep, I agree.
Okay. I
saw one, Cody, that I wanted to touch on. It's up a bit. It's where was it? I can't find it now.
Do you remember the gist of it?
No, I just remember seeing it going, oh, that'd be a good one to talk about. So go ahead if you see another one. Let me see if I'll see if I can find it.
I like this one that I can break down with you guys. So how do you qualify leads? Isaac, how do you qualify leads? What is the process before acquisitions appointment? The real thing, guys, is just listening. It has very little to do with real estate. I have to ask questions about the real estate so they don't think it's weird, right? When I ask them about divorce and everything else that's going on in life, they're going to be like, that's weird. You're calling about my home, but you're asking about my status with my wife. It's really get the stuff out of the way quick on the house. At the first, we're talking and we're just having a conversation. They call you maybe off a postcard, or maybe you're cold calling them, and you get someone with interest and you say, so tell me a little bit about it. Even the ones that sound difficult, guys, I have a cold caller that's phenomenal here. He's an ace. And many people would hang up on many of these conversations. So I share this so that you guys realize, don't give up early. We had a guy that says, oh my gosh, you're just one of those guys that think you can just buy my house. And he's like, I'd be willing to buy your house. And he's like, well, let me tell you this, it's worth $400,000, but I'm not moving unless I get $600,000. My cold caller ended up saying, instead of saying, oh yeah, that doesn't work, man, but if everything changes, normally that's what you hear, and then they hang up. My cold caller said, well, this is interesting. Tell me a little bit more about the home. Guys, who would ever do that? Think about that. Guess what? This guy had a conversation that opened up. He's like, well, yeah, let me tell you about the home. We ended up going on this appointment and getting it 150 below the 400 that it was worth, and he wanted 600,000 because he just threw up this high kite and we dropped an anchor, right? But most people would have hung up on that call. So what are we looking for? We're looking for, really, it comes down to what I call the 4 pillars, right? The first one is time. So think about if they have to move quick. If they have to move in 7 days, a real estate agent's not going to help them. A typical transaction is going to take minimum 45 days, and it could take longer, right? So if the timeline. The second one is condition. The home's in disrepair. It's distressed. It needs work. It's a hoarder house. It has boarded up windows. It has whatever, torn off roof. So the condition. The other one is the price, which most times is a deceiver. People are saying 600,000, but we ended up getting it at 300. Or I'm sorry, we ended up getting it at 250,000, but they said 600,000. So most times price is actually a deceiver. And then ultimately, the fourth one is the driver. What is it that's making them call me? Why? That's our job. Our job is to figure out, why did they call me on a 37-cent postcard? Or why did they fill out my web form? Or why are they allowing me to talk to them from a cold call? That's your real job. It's not about the home, guys. It's really about why? What's the driver? Well, you may find out that they're behind on their taxes, going through divorce, that they received a home inherited through probate. There's so many different forms of this. So that's the 4 pillars you're really looking for. And that's how you qualify that if you have these pillars, they exist, go on the appointment, or virtually right? This is where you will now just talk the deal right over the phone.
Yep. I found that question, Cody. It's Don Dada. How can you comp successfully without seeing the inside?
That was a great question. I remember seeing that.
Okay. So
and in fact, right there, bro.
Oh, you found it. Good. Okay. Yeah. I like this question. We talked a little bit about this, and Michael, you surely deal with this when you're doing virtual. You don't know, you don't have pictures, right? You're talking to them. How do you figure out value? First of all, you don't need to see the inside to determine ARV. ARV is just what are homes selling for after repair value in the area. The one issue is the repairs, the condition. Cody talked about the 4 things. The condition, that's the thing that is an unknown at this point. So there's a series of questions that will give you a good idea. A general rule of thumb I have is if the kitchen and bath haven't been updated, then nothing else has been updated. Or if the kitchen and bath is in rough condition, probably everything else is in rough condition. If someone takes care of their kitchen, they probably take care of everything else. And that's generalizing a bit, but I focus on those kind of 2 areas as well. Tell me about your kitchen. What's the cabinets like? What are the counters like? How long ago? I know the year built. Has the kitchen been updated since 1980? Oh, no, it hasn't. Okay, I got original cabinets now. So you can kind of get an idea. And then again, if you're using ballpark figures and you follow kind of my algorithm I use, you don't need to see the property to get a pretty dang good idea of what kind of condition it's in. Now, certainly we are not going to, at some point, we're going to get eyes on it. So that's just where, at what point in time do I send somebody, I'm virtual now, do I send somebody to look at it and verify and validate the information? I try not to do that until I have an executed contract with that seller with a ballpark figure in place. Oh, I hope that kind of makes sense, right? Send your guy out, get the walkthrough, do the pictures, video, and then make sure that your numbers all still work.
So then, Jerry, are you going back to that to hold your inspection with your cash buyers then after your guy goes out and gets the photos?
So my off-market contracts, the inspection is until the day of closing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I don't have a 5-day or a 10-day. I have all the way up until closing for inspection. Now, clearly I'm not waiting, right? Once I get a contract, because the more time I can give my cash buyer to close, the easier it is to wholesale. So my goal is to get everything done right away. But yeah, so then I get the contract, I have inspection time, send my guy, validate, verify the condition. If now things are different than the information I was given on the phone, we'll renegotiate or terminate the contract.
But then I guess my question is, your one guy's going out to get the photos, but when are your cash buyers and people who want to buy the property on the assignment coming back through? Is that a separate time?
That's separate. Yeah. So then we'll set up an inspection party, like an open house, like Cody does. And I want to get as many people there, create an auction frenzy type environment. Ideally, if I don't have a cash buyer list, like a lot of my virtual deals, I don't, then now I got to find a buyer, right? So it's a little different.
Got it. Okay.
This is something I love. How do you go about the inspections? This is right in line with what you're talking about. Yeah. And there's some key things you said there that I want to make sure everyone heard and that really write it down. You put a home under contract. The before the inspection is making sure you use the right verbiage when sending out to your cash buyers and making sure that offering is not set in stone and sound like a first come, first serve. Whoever gives me the price first gets it. That's what we don't want. So you don't want asking price. I never use those words. Asking price 150. No. If 150 is the price that you think you're going to get out of it and you're going at the top, so there's a couple things. Don't put it out at the offering at what you think you're going to make. So if you put a home under contract at 125 and you think you're going to make 25 grand, don't push it out there at 150. What you do is push it out at like 134 or 139. And how you submit it to everyone is suggested starting offer. So not asking price, because asking price is, well, wait, if I put it out at 139 and someone brings me 139, do I have to accept it? Well, maybe if you made it sound like first come, first serve, first one to drop off earnest money gets it, but I don't use that. It's just suggested starting price. 1, 2 is that intrigues a lot of people. So if I put it at the top, I'm going to maybe have 1 or 2 or 3 people that say, ooh, that kind of sounds good. I want to go out and see it, right? But I don't want 1 or 2 or 3. Like Jerry just said, I want 20 people. I want a feeding frenzy. Why? Because their egos start to get into play a little bit there. They see that Bob's out there and Sally and John, and they're like, man, it's not going to go for 139, so we better submit a better offer than 139 because there's a lot of eyes out here. And so one puts out 145, and then the offer comes out at 150. Now you're already at what you thought you're going to get. And then when someone says, hey, where do I need to be? We never share. It's no different than how would you feel if a owner – you put out an offer for 145 to buy their home, and then they shop you and say, we've got a guy at 145. All you got to be is at 146 and we'll take your offer. You would be ticked off. Don't do that to your cash buyers. And we never do that to our cash buyers. But what we do is, hey, we'll buy it for 150. Fantastic. We have a lot of interest on this property right now. So all I'm asking for is just your highest and best and submit it by the end of the day or whenever that time frame is, right? And you're always just getting the highest and best. And you'll see that this slowing down process starts to build this up. So that's the pre-prep work I want you to understand. The right verbiage. Don't asking price. I don't want a definite first come, first serve type thing mentality. Suggested starting price and make it lower than what you think you're going to make. And it will end up going there anyways and past that if you do it right. That's the first thing. But when you go about the inspections, Jerry said it. I don't want to set up, hey, you can go on Tuesday. Fantastic. Let me get that lined up. That's what realtors do. Those are showings. Inspection, I want 1 inspection, period, the end. There's no 2 inspections. If you can't make it to the inspection, you missed out on this one. I want 1 inspection. I do not want to hassle the seller. I do not want to hassle tenants if it's rented at the moment. 1 time, that's it. And that's when they get out there. But the first time you may be like, well, man, people didn't come because they didn't go on this time. That's only going to happen 1 or 2 times before they realize when Cody sends out a deal, he means it. Like it's this date and there's only 1 time, and you'll start to see they start to just grow. So it is something that naturally has to grow. Maybe the first time people don't get it. And they're like, I'm just not going to make it out to this one. But then they're going to see, oh my gosh, Cody's sending out 15 of these a month. And if I want one of Cody's deal, who happens to be the biggest wholesaler, then I better get my butt out to these inspections, and they all make it out to the inspections. Feeding frenzy. I want 20 eyes, not 2 eyes.
And that's how you train your people. You got to just train them the way that you do things, and they'll learn, and then they'll do it that way. Yeah, love that.
So good. So Cody, I have a question. When you send out your emails or messages to these deals for the inspection, do you include that actual time and day on there, or do you let them contact you first and then put the time and day on there?
Time and day for the inspection? Yeah, we can put that in the email that we send out to our cash buyers, and then we follow up with a text going out to every one of them saying, hey, did you see that smoking hot deal on 123 Main Street? And then that pushes them over with the hyperlink, pushes them over to that offering or to that email, because everyone has a phone on them. And even though most have and should have email on it, text is easy to open, where email, most people don't open. So unless they're in front of their computer, they won't see it. So we'll send it out on computer, followed up by text, and then you see that open rate go through the roof, and you see people finally like, oh, I better check this out. Cody just sent out a smoking hot deal in Holiday. And so now he's typing on it and going right to the offering. So that's key. And then follow up. Let me ask that question again, Michael, what you asked me.
So do you actually put the time and the day on it, or just do you give that time when you're going to inspect the property on when they inquire, or do you actually just put it out in your email?
Yeah, we put out in the email that when there's going to be an inspection held on that, but to also call, because in Utah, I can't put on pictures. I'm acting as a realtor. I'm now soliciting the home and not the contract. In Texas, I can put pictures on that offering, and it's still, I'm saying with the term, this is to sell the contract that allows you to purchase this home, but I can show home because I have equitable interest. But in Utah, that's the one that they don't like me to do. So, and we haven't seen any hurt on that. It doesn't stop business, by the way. So that's good. But yes, we let them know that so that they can get out there and do that. And then we give a couple days. So if our inspection period's on a Monday, we'll give them maybe till Thursday to submit their offers. And that way we start the slow process. And everything on the acquisition, guys, when you talk about DISC assessment from Tony Robbins, acquisitions in the D&I, and then the S&C is usually your disposition. So don't let the D&Is run your disposition process, because D&I is all about fast, speed, get out there as fast as you can, lock up the deal, where disposition is completely opposite. It's painfully slow. Wait for every offer. Make sure you talk to every buyer and see if they've submitted their highest and best. And it's a slow process. And D&I people, they can't handle it. That's why most people, Michael, you being one of them, you're the D&I. And that's why sometimes it's convenient to just take a quick 10K, because you're already thinking, I want to get on this next deal. I don't have to diddle daddle with this disposition side, because I'm really good at locking up deals. And that's why we got to get someone that's in the S&C to manage that for you, because they're the ones that are methodical, that really think through this. They're the ones that are like the engineer minds, the CPAs. They're all over here in the S&C, and those are the ones you really want managing your disposition process.
So yeah, one thing to add to that, Michael, that I think you do this as well, Cody, but you want to make sure you're very clear that this inspection party, this 2-hour window or whatever, this is it. Like, this is the only showing. So we tell them, bring your partners, bring your investors, bring your contractors. This is the only time you're going to have to see this property. Again, you got to train everybody that, right? If they think they can call you up and be like, hey, I want to go over there whenever it's convenient for me, you're going to have a nightmare on your hands, right? So we try to really train our list to that. That's it. That's your only opportunity to see the property.
Yeah.
Guys, I think we've hit a lot of questions, and we've gone for our tradition of about an hour and a half. And I think there's been some good stuff. Michael, I want to thank you. You came out here and you brought some solid content that brought up really some incredible questions that we were able to, all three of us, jam on and really deep dive. Guys, I hope each one of you received some value from this, that you hopefully took, again, going back to that, took some notes on that you can go out and take action on, because that's the difference. The information doesn't do anything. Everyone says knowledge is power, and I think they forgot a big key to that quote, and it's knowledge is power once acted upon. Knowledge is not power by itself if it just sits in your brain. Knowledge is power once acted upon. So go out there and act upon this new knowledge that you received, and this will indeed get you one step closer to your first deal or your next deal, and also help your business really turn into something that can change your life. Jerry, in closing, why don't you do like your housekeeping of what this looks like for the text thread, and your good way of ending of how you want people to talk about Michael to end this, and what do we do?
Yeah, so guys, if you got value out of this live stream today, leave a comment right here in the chat or below in the comments, and say, first of all, thank Michael, and say, Michael, you're a flipping genius. He's doing amazing things. 3 years into the business, growing the business, doing deals, making money, young guy, doing virtual now, really awesome. I hope he's an inspiration to you watching right now. He was in your spot. If you're working on that first deal, he was there. I was there. Cody was there. It's you guys get out of this business what you put into it. So don't just learn, take action, like Cody said. But yeah, make sure you let Michael know he's a flipping genius. We'd appreciate that. Guys, once this ends, the live stream, this video will now live on not live. It'll live on as a video now here on my channel, on Cody's platforms. So if you're watching this while it's not live, leave a comment in the comment section now. Or if you've been watching this and you have more questions, or we didn't get to your question, we'll do our very best to answer those questions. So put that in the comments though, because the chat's going to close down. And then stay tuned, guys. Cody and I try to do these as often as we can weekly. We try to do them every week on Tuesdays. So we're going to continue to do that and try our very best to keep bringing tremendous value to you. The biggest thing, guys, is Cody and I want to share with you what we're doing right now in this market so that it's relevant to you, so that you can apply that as well and go have tremendous success in your businesses. So thank you again, everybody. We really appreciate you being here and your comments and your participating with us on this live stream. And that's it.
Love it, guys. I'm trying to keep up with all these fantastic people doing all this. But guys, thank you so much. Michael, thank you again. This stuff's going to resonate with a lot of individuals, and you brought a topic that's really hot right now, and that's virtual wholesaling. So guys, thank you so much. God bless you guys in your journey. This lives on. Now just carry it over to the comments in the platform you're in, and we will do our best to answer your questions. God bless you guys. Take care.